So thinking about this important role that you play in the last, is it 9-10 series?
Yes.
Of
Coming
The
up to
Apprentice?
11, yeah.
You know, known as the Queen of Mean. We're going to come to that. I'm going to keep dropping it in
I
there.
know you do, in case anyone forgets.
Yeah, a bit naughty, but you grilled the final cat. How did it all come about? How did, did Alan give you a ring or?
Yeah.
Lord Alan, sorry. Don't.
Well, I met Alan in the 80s when Alan had Amstrad.
I remember that.
And I had Honeysuckle.
Wow.
And he would travel to the Far East and I would, and our paths would collide. And a couple of times we once got stranded in Kuwait for many, many hours. So I knew him quite well, not very well socially. I'd been to a couple of functions, but I knew him quite well. And then Alan lives in Florida. I have a home in Florida. He has a winter home there. And he got quite friendly with my son, I have one son who lives in Florida.
Wow.
So I've known him for many years, really. And then one day he called me up and he said, I need a new interviewer for the final 5, in his no-nonsense way. Well, can you do it? I need someone who's going to dig deep, expose weaknesses and, can you do it? And like everything, I always say, if you have to say yes I never say no unless it's absolutely necessary. Because if you don't buy a ticket, you're not going to win the lottery, are you? So, if you don't have a go, how are you going to know? And truthfully, I'd never been on television in my life. I'd never read a business plan, really. I'd interviewed people for my own positions in my company.
Yeah.
But I said, yeah, I'll have a go. And that's what he did. He hooked me up with the Fremantle. Hooked me up with a mock business plan and a mock candidate. And I went along, read the business plan, went to the studio, did my interview. And 3 weeks later, he called me and said, okay, I'm going to give you a go. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. I was very pleased after the very first episode when I had a full page in The Guardian, which said, the Telegraph, who is Linda Plant, the new Queen of Mean? And that is the name that stuck with me.
Yeah.
But I delivered the brief for Alan, you see, for Lord Sugar.
Yeah, you knew that he didn't want somebody going in saying, "Oh yeah,
it's boring, isn't it? It's boring." I mean, honestly, I get stopped so much, and most people like me, or most people like to watch me.
No, I agree. So over that time, you've become known as one of the toughest interviewers on The Apprentice ever. So, what are the top red flags that you look for in a candidate's business plan?
I think that, look, it's good to have ambitions and it's good to, dream big, but you've got to walk before you run. So the first thing
is that. One of my sayings, by the way.
Yeah. Well,
crawl, walk, run.
Yeah. Is it realistic? That's the first thing. And they tend to make this mistake over and over again, whatever business they've got, right? And Alan likes it. It's good if they've already got a business. So one group of candidates, you've got an existing business that's already making some money. Yeah. And that's much better than just an idea. Because an idea is quite difficult and quite easy to smash if it's smashable. But I think you have to look for realism. And what are your realistic expectations? What's your potential? What are you going to do with the investment? And you've got to get rid of they love to talk about comparisons to global, okay, well, Wingstop has got 1,400 shops. Yeah, but just open one restaurant and get your first franchise.
Yeah.
And that's the mistake. They make it time and time again. Yeah, you can dream and be as big as any multinational, but let's see how you're going to do it, because we can ignore these comparisons, they're not realistic at this point. So, I look for the reality. I look, first of all, for the potential of the idea, the person, obviously.
Keeps coming back to this person.
Yeah, but I don't get to see how the person has performed.
Oh, don't you?
You see, no, which is
good.
the right. It's
That's
good. It's
that
good.
Can skew your.
We get a bit of an overview. I get an overview of how many tasks they've won, how many tasks they've lost.
Right.
But actually, that's good because you are just judging them on who they are, and you know that if they've got into the final 5, they've worked hard because it's not easy.
No, it isn't.
It's not
No, it
easy.
isn't.
You know, it really
Although some of them
isn't.
tasks do look ludicrous.
Well, they look
but-
ludicrous. They make it look funny. They make it look ridiculous.
I know.
But on the whole, it's not that easy. So to come through that process and be in the final 5, they've already done well,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And then you get to the interview stage. So the interview stage, you have to see, will the person actually get on well in Alan's team? Will Alan get on well with them? Is the idea, if it's an existing business, that's good. He likes that. You know, has it got potential? All of those things you have to look at.
I love it because you have got this name now, nickname.
I know.
The Queen of Mean.
I know.
I mean, it's a bit harsh, it's a bit brutal, isn't it? How do you feel about that?
Well,
how do you feel about being known as the Queen of Mean?
Well,
because you're not.
I'm not.
You're a million miles away.
And I'm always the first one to say to people, look, I am not. My persona on the television is the TV persona.
Yeah.
I am there to look for the investment for Lord Sugar. If you give me a business plan that is wreckable, I'll wreck it. You know, that's what I'm there for. But that's not my life. So, but I remember Claudine, who I'm very, very friendly with, when I first met her just before we did The Apprentice. And I invited her to my house for dinner with her family. And she said, my daughters are scared to come to meet you. Of course, now we get on famously. So yes, this persona. And I often say to people, I am not how I am. I suppose I am a bit how I am because that's how I am. That there is a side of me that is like that, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a tough side. I try to be firm. I try to be firm but fair. I try.
I mean, you've sort of answered this, but the interviews can get quite intense. Yeah. And I know, look, it's television. We're creating this thing there. There's a lot of editing and everything else. But do you ever feel bad about how tough you are? Or is that part of the test?
I don't feel bad about how tough I am because I think they need a grilling. They're coming for a £250,000 investment.
Yeah.
As you say, it's edited as well. So no, I don't feel tough. I don't feel badly about how tough I might grill a candidate. No, I don't, because I always say to them, and funnily enough, it's not personal. I mean, it's not personal against them, you know. And usually at the wrap party or when I meet the final 5, they're usually quite fine and really want to chat to me. And when I do You're Fired, which I do every year, and I meet the candidates, they're only happy. Oh, Linda, we're so happy you're on the panel. And then they chat to me.